We're going to go ahead and start. We want to make sure that we give Mr. Mitchell as much time as possible so that he can share his message with us. So if we can get everybody to come in here and take our seats, we'll get started. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We really appreciate everybody's attendance here. Make sure that you do stop by the exhibits. There's some great information out there on everything from gyms, healthy eating, also some of the different providers that we have for our benefits program. So make sure you stop by there. If you have any questions, this is a great place to put the press. Also, you were given 2 tickets when you came in here. You should have already put one in there earlier. You have one more ticket. After Scott addresses us, if you will go ahead and write your name on that other one, and then you can stop by and put it in whichever can that you want for some of the different prizes that are there as well. So, again, we really appreciate you being here. We're excited about the wellness program, everybody's participation, and the results that we're seeing and how things are going. This time, I'd like to introduce Scott Mitchell. He's our keynote speaker this morning. Scott had his start in athletics. Well, not his start, but he went to Springville High School. Was a phenomenal athlete there in several sports, specifically football that year. I told him that we'd almost forgotten that his team beat us in the state championship back in 1986. Very phenomenal athlete. He then went on to the University of Utah, where he excelled as a quarterback as well. I was drafted by the Detroit Lions. I played in the NFL for 12 years for a number of different teams, mostly Detroit, and has his own successful software business now as well. And there's been a couple of other things that happened along the way, and I'm hoping that he'll cover those in his address today. So at this time, if you'll help me welcome Scott Mitchell.
Good morning. Yeah, it's kind of fun to drive up here. Rodney Wells and I played together at the University of Utah, and he went to Bear High School. We beat them in the state championship, and Rodney, he was always disappointed about that. It's kind of funny, Rodney was about this tall, so it's good. So I was with my dad in the Chandler Regional Medical Center about a year and a half ago. We were in the intensive care unit, and it was moments before he was going to die. And he'd been suffering from illness related to diabetes. And he had 6 things going on in his body at the time, any one of which was fatal. He'd been on a respirator, and they'd taken him off the respirator, and we were just waiting for him to pass away. As I sat there in this room, contemplating this moment, this is my dad, the only dad that I have, and he's going to die, and he's going to die just from being overweight. I was really struggling with it. My dad had a great mind, but his physical body had just given out. As I was sitting there, one of the nurses, to give us more privacy, closed the door to the room. And when she did, there was this picture of these butterflies on the wall. And as I looked at that picture, it just kind of all came together and started to make sense in my mind. That my dad was this old, worn-out caterpillar who was going to go into a cocoon like he was dead. And someday he'd come back again as this beautiful butterfly. And in this moment, I had this powerful change happen to me where I knew that it was going to be okay. That it was okay that my dad was dying. That it wasn't the end. A few months later, my life hadn't changed. I was still 366 pounds. But I was standing on a pedestal in the LA Coliseum in a pair of shorts, weighing 366 pounds, knowing that in just a few moments, the television camera was going to go on, and millions of people were going to watch me and see what had happened to me. And I had gotten so heavy that they had to put me in the refrigerator because if they put me out, I would melt like butter. And I went on vacation with my family to Hawaii. We were out snorkeling. And the whale watchers came by and started taking pictures of me. That's how bad it had become. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to face up to this. I didn't want millions of people to look at me and see what had happened and how embarrassing that would be. And I thought, gosh, this is so ironic because here I am at the 50-yard line of the LA Coliseum, one of the most iconic sports venues in the world. They've had Super Bowls, and they've had Olympics, and they've had the USC Trojans, and all kinds of sporting events, World Cup soccer finals. And this was the arena that I had relished, that I loved. Being in the middle of the arena with all of the lights and millions of people watching, but in this moment, I had absolute terror go through my body. And it took me back to a time in my life when I learned how to fly an airplane. When I was learning how to fly, I went with an instructor. We go to the instructor and we practice these routines. And these maneuvers, similar to when you get a driver's license. And as soon as you get proficient at those maneuvers and you get a license, you can fly an airplane. The problem was I had to go with an instructor for a period of time, and then I had to go on my own, solo. And I asked the instructor, I said, so what do I do when I'm alone? He said, you just practice the maneuvers that we practice. Now, it is similar to driving a car, but it's really hard to parallel park an airplane in the air. It's a little challenging. But other than that, it's very similar. So I go by myself, and the first maneuver I'm going to practice is what's called a stall. And that's where you fly the airplane and you go up in an attitude that's so sharp that no longer does the air smoothly flow over the entire wing. Because of that, the airplane starts to buffet in the air, and it no longer produces lift, and it sinks out of the air. Very easy to get out of if you do it correctly. If you don't, there are two wings. There's one on the left and one on the right, and you can actually stall one of the wings out, and the other wing produces lift. And when you do that, one wing lifts, the other doesn't, you go into what's called a spin. So this is what I did the first time I was alone. And I was 4,000 feet above the ground, spinning to the earth. And that's just how I felt on that podium. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm just spinning to the earth, and how do I get out of it? And this is a very scary moment. And in that moment, where I thought it was impossible to do this, and I was so embarrassed and so scared, I just stopped for a minute. I said, I know how to get out of this. I know how to do this. So I performed a simple maneuver, and I got out of the spin. And I did the same thing on the show, and I've done the same thing in my life many times, is I keep in pause. And I said, okay, this is something hard, it's something difficult, it's something challenging, it's something that could lead to my death. And there's a way out of this. And I want to share with you today my cocoon, my change, my metamorphosis. And I want to tell you that anyone can do this. You can do this. You can overcome things that right now seem impossible. You feel like you're spinning to the earth, or you're standing there exposed to the world, humiliated and embarrassed. There's a way out. It's not as hard as you think. When I started on the show, they said you got to get to the bottom of what caused you to gain weight, because it's not just diet and exercise. There's a whole lot more going on. And you got to figure out all of the things that are happening. So I would get up every morning before anyone, and I would start to hike. We were in Malibu, California, in the Santa Monica Mountains, where they filmed the show MASH. MASH was like one of my favorite shows growing up. And so all of the outdoor scenes of MASH were literally a couple of miles from where we were. And I would hike these mountains every morning. And as I would hike, I started to think about me and food and the relationships that I had in my life. And I would start to unwind this. I'd walk in the morning, think about it, and then I'd write in a journal about it, talk to people about it. And it started to unwind my life. Every thought, every friend, every relationship that I had in my life. After about a month of this, I was hiking, and it just became overwhelming. And I sat down on the trail, and I just began to sob. I said, this is too hard. I can't do this. I hate my life. It's hard to be honest with yourself and look at everything about you, because some of it isn't really that pretty. And I just sat there, and I just could not stop crying. It was about the failures in my life, that I didn't win Super Bowl, and that I'm not in the Hall of Fame, and all of these things, and it just ate at me. I hated it. And I just said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to continue. I'm going to pack my bags and leave. And this little voice in my head said, if you quit, you will live with this for the rest of your life. Find a way to get up one more time. I'm tired of getting up one more time. You know, it's like going on a diet and you lose weight, you gain it all back again, and you lose weight, you just go through it, you just get tired of it after a while. And I saw it my dad. And you just want to quit. It's too hard. And I said, no, I'm not getting it. I'm done with it. And it came back to me and said, if you quit, you will live with this for the rest of your life. Find a way to get up one more time. So I did. And I wasn't happy about it. I muttered my way through the rest of that day. The next morning, I was lying in my bed and I woke up. And it all hit me in that moment. You found your strength with all of your failures. All of the things that you've gone through in your life is how you find joy and happiness and success. These things that you see as failures are just experiences. Those are the things that actually have meant more, that have brought more out of you than your successes. They taught you some really good characteristics about patience, about long-suffering, about determination, about sacrifice, about love. So all the things you hate are the things that you need to love. And that's when it started to change in my mind. It's like exercise. Exercise is awful. It hurts. You sweat. You get tired. And it doesn't stop because the next day you're still tired and it still hurts. I've exercised where just sitting down on the toilet was a challenge. It hurt so bad. You're like, how could this be good for me? And it's like just wherever you land, that's it. There's no adjustment. You're there. And yet, that piece of cake, oh, it tastes so good. How can it be bad for you? You've got to learn to love things that you hate. You've got to embrace the side of you that's not so pretty. And those are the things that make the difference. Those are the things that build your foundation of strength. Is on your failures. Learning to love the things about you that you hate. That's the first thing. When was the last time you gave yourself a hug? When was the last time you said, I can do this? I'm amazing. Today needs to be the first time you do it. And you need to keep doing it every day. The second thing that I found in this metamorphosis is learning how to work. When I retired from professional football, I wanted to be a really good golfer. And my golf instructor said to me, look, there's a process here where you just have to hit a lot of golf balls. You can't get around it. There's no magic pill. There's no sidetrack to this. It's work. And it's working at things that you're not really good at. When I was a young boy, I loved to play baseball. It was like my first love in my life. And I was a pitcher. And I would stand on the mound and be ready to pitch. And these batters would get up to bat and they'd start to cry. And I knew I would cry because I could throw a ball really hard, but I had no idea what I was doing. So they would start to cry, and then I'd start to cry because I felt bad, because I was going to hit him, and I would hit him. I hit a kid right in the nose and broke his nose, and he had 2 black eyes, and he had to go to the hospital. It was terrible. And I was just like, gosh, I can't do this. And I would go in my backyard, and had a brick shed, and I drew an outline of a catcher's mask, and it's battered in like black marker. And I would sit there for hours throwing the baseball. And I just throw it. What I found was I was focused on the batter. And that's where I was throwing the ball. And so I learned in my mind that all I needed to focus on was the catcher, and the mitt, and the target. I started as a freshman in high school on a baseball team. I pitched for 4 years. We won a state championship and we took 2nd place. And I was 11-1 my senior year as a pitcher. And I actually ended up playing in college baseball. And in large part, it was because I learned to do something that I couldn't do. And I was willing to just put in the work and the effort to do it. Another thing that I learned in my life was the power of goals. So there was this physical work, but there's also this mental work. And working at something that you can't do. They found that by writing something down that you wish to accomplish, you're 30% more likely to accomplish it just by writing it down, without doing anything. Zig Ziglar used to say, are you a meaningful specific, or are you a wandering generality? So often in our lives, we're just kind of winging it, and we're just, what's going to happen today? Instead of taking control of our lives and setting goals for ourselves and working on our goals. And here's what I found about goals. Powerful. Unbelievably powerful are goals. And there are 3 things. Is it tangible? So, if I was to say to you right here, I want to fly to the moon next month, it's not tangible. Although I'd love to do it, it's not a reality. But tangible goal is something that I can achieve. But it has to stretch you. It has to go outside your comfort level. How could we ever get to a point where we ran a sub 4-minute mile? That was unheard of. Until someone put it in their mind that it was tangible. And it was a reality. It has to be well defined. So it has to have specific tasks associated with it. You're not going to run a 4-minute, sub 4-minute mile if you go to Dunkin' Donuts every morning and have a cup of coffee and a bunch of donuts. It's not going to happen. But if you have a regimented program of exercise and speed work, and you actually use resistance, and you get your muscles to go farther than they will, and there's specific things that you do, it has to be well defined. The last thing, you have to have a timeline to it. Here's my timeline. Let's see. It's September 9th, 2015. And on September 9th, 2016, I'm going to have $1 million. What am I doing? And I'm going to go out, and I'm going to speak 24/7 for the next year. Which going to be, I'm going to have $1 million next year. And what happens is, if you don't have that timeline, then tomorrow comes. I'm one day closer. And in your mind, if you haven't put a timeline to it, it pushes it out one day further in the future. Because you programmed it in your mind as a dream. And it's a wish. It's a want. It's not, I need, I expect, I am. You've had tests in your life. We all went to school, and there was a date when that test was going to be. And you would stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning the night before the test to make sure you were ready for the test, because there was a timeline, there was a deadline. And it creates this good stress in your body. It gets your body in tune with, I've got to deal with this. Because there's a deadline. There's a date. But if you see it as a dream, I want $1 million. It will never happen. If I took you right there and got you up on the stage and pinned you down to the ground and put my hand over your mouth and your nose, you would fight with everything you had. With everything you had to breathe. Because you need to breathe. Because I expect it to happen. So, it has to be well-defined, tangible, with a timeline. And by that, it will create within you a reality, a need. I expect to do this. I was in the 6th grade. We had career orientation. We did these tests all week long, sat down with the counselor at the end of the week, and he said, okay, we're going to pick out your career. We sat down with the counselor. He said, based upon your test results, you're most likely to be a garbage man or a mortician. Which one would you like? And I said, I'm 12. Is there anything else? He said, you don't have to pick one of these. Pick something that you really think you can do. So I sat for a minute and I said, I'm going to be a professional football player. He said, nobody from Springfield, Utah has ever been a professional football player. Why don't you pick something that you can really do? So I sat there for a minute. My mom was in the room, and I had a million thoughts go through my mind in a matter of 2 seconds. I'll say doctor, lawyer, something that my mom will be impressed and I get out of here. And in that moment I said, no. I'm going to be a professional football player. And that's what I told Mr. Jensen. That's what he wrote down in the 6th grade. And in 1990, I was drafted by the Miami Dolphins, and I became the first person from Springfield, Utah, to ever play professional football. And I had goals along the way. So I'll win a state championship. I'll be an all-state player. We'll win our region. I'll do this. And I had very specific goals along the way. Same thing in college, all the way through. And it wasn't this wandering generality. I had a tangible goal, a professional football player. And it was a stretch. And I had a well-defined goal, and I had a timeline to it. And I knew I was going to do it. A few years ago, so, love yourself. Love things about you that you hate. Embrace them. Recognize that they're a great part of you. And you got to work at things. And it's not just physical things. You've got to learn to do things other than just physical. There's emotional, there's mental things to work on and work at. The third thing is surrounding yourself with really good people. My best friend in college, we had every class together. We had the same major together. We socialized together. And I realized that when I left college that our friendship was not a great friendship. It was toxic. And we parted ways. A few years ago, I was in the Salt Lake Airport at 7:30 in the morning, getting ready to board a flight, and my friend passed me as I was sitting there. He didn't see me, and I saw him. And I got up, and I started to chase him down the corridor. And I got inches from his shoulder, and I was going to grab him and stop him and say hello. And right in that moment, I stopped. And I said, if I do this, I'm going to bring that relationship back to me that I don't really want. And it's going to bring all those toxic feelings and that friendship. It's not a good thing for me. And so without touching his shoulder, I turned and walked away. You have friends. You have to ask yourself, are those friends accomplices, or are they really your friends? Because the people that you're around have such an impact and influence on your life, almost as much as anything. And if they're enabling you to be enabled, you need to ask yourself, is this really a friend? Or is this an accomplice? For 4 years, I played for the Miami Dolphins. Well, I didn't really play. I sat between a guy named Don Shula and a guy named Dan Marino. And every day for 4 years, I sat in meetings between these two guys. Don Shula has won more football games in professional football than any coach. They say his record is unobtainable. No one will catch his record. And he was an amazing coach. And then there was Dan Marino, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play professional football. He was incredible. Every day of practice, he never missed a pass. It was amazing how he practiced. And for 4 years, I sat between the two of them. And I asked myself, well, what did I really get from that experience? Well, it was my 4th year in the NFL. And we were playing the Cleveland Browns. We got on an airplane to fly to Cleveland, Ohio, and I got really sick on the airplane. By the time we landed, I could hardly stand up. I was so sick. We went to the stadium to have practice at the stadium and to have meetings the day before the game. By the time we got to the stadium, they just said, we're going to send you to the hospital. This isn't good. So I go to the hospital. I'm in the hospital. The doctor looks at me with our athletic trainer, and the doctor says, this is really bad. He will not play the game tomorrow. He's got a highly contagious form of pink eye that's made him really sick. Very, very rarely do you see this. And he'll get other people sick. You've got to keep him away from everyone. And the trainer said, well, it's okay. He doesn't play the game anyways. You don't have a problem keeping away from everyone. So they put me in a room in a hotel by myself. Didn't sleep all night. Yeah, just sick as could be. I was puking and just everything, and just miserable. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking up at the ceiling going, this will be the game. The Dan Marino was hurt. And I won't get to play. And just know it. I went to breakfast without sleeping that night. The doctor said, how do you feel? He said that if I had to play in an emergency, I could. Fine. Suit up. Don't warm up. And stay away from everyone. So I went on the field. And I was standing. Warm up. It was just the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've never, ever in my life since or before been in that situation. Didn't sweat a drop. Didn't pick up a ball. Didn't throw a pass. Didn't do a single stretch. Stood there. The game starts. We go around the score. Dan Marino's the answer. Get the ball back there and go down and score again. Dan Marino's the answer. Get the ball 3rd time. We're going to use the score. Dan Marino drops back, plants on his right foot, and blows out of his heels. Completes the pass and crumbles to the ground. Coach Shula turns and looks at me and he goes, Mitchell, you're in. I go, come on, this is so not fair. I go, I didn't even warm up. I go, this is the first time you're on it. Then they're just laughing. This is so unbelievable. It's like, this is what happened. So I'm doing jumping jacks. I'm trying to throw as many passes as I can. And I finally go in the game and they call a pass. And first play. 3rd down and 5 from the 8-yard line going into school. I make the read. I throw it to the receiver. He slips and falls down. I hit the defensive back in the stomach. And he's as surprised as I am. And he returns it 97 yards for a touchdown. It's still a Cleveland Browns record today. And his name is Najee Musafir. And I'm chasing him down the sideline going, I should have stayed in bed. I should have stayed in bed. What was I doing? We go into halftime. Coach Shula's like, everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And I look around the room and I'm like looking at my teammates going, it's not going to be okay. They do not believe you. They don't believe you. So I went out the second half and I'm like, I've got to say something. I've got to say something. So I say to everyone in the house, look, just do your job. Don't worry about it. I'm ready for this. And we'll be okay. I threw for 250 yards in the half, and I threw 3 more touchdown passes to our team. So I had 4 on the day. If I'm going to throw it, I'm throwing touchdowns, right? I was named AFC Offensive Player of the Week. I was playing half of the play. First game I ever really played. A lot of why I had success without ever playing was because for 4 years, I was surrounded by the greatest. They never spent time going, hey Scott, we're going to groom you to play a game. It was just being around it. I picked up so much from surrounding myself with great people. You don't have to surround yourself with a bunch of churches. You don't. You don't have to reach your arm out. You can pull it back and you can walk away. And you need to. You absolutely need to. Because those friends will be your accomplices, one way or another. Coach Shula is a funny guy because everybody hates Coach Shula when they play for him. But then after they're done, everyone loves him. I had an experience in practice one day where we had 2 regulation-sized football fields. So we had 100 yards long, and he was in the far corner with our defense. And he'd sent the quarterbacks and a few of the receivers 2 football fields away, as far as we possibly could be away from, to work on these new plays. And Dan Ray goes, my arm's kind of sore today. Why don't you take all these reps? Great, because I never got to practice. So I dropped back until the first pass I completed. Until the second pass, and I completed. And I throw the third pass, completed. I completed 9 passes in a row. And on the 10th pass, it was incomplete. And from 2 football fields away, Coach Shula yells over, what in the hell is going on over there? I send you over to practice, there's no defensive backs, and you're throwing balls in the dirt. You can't even complete a pass. What's wrong with you? And he yelled it so loud that they could hear it in South Florida. And I was humiliated. Like that Coach Shula is the biggest jerk in the world. I said, didn't you see the first 9 passes? I completed 9 out of 10. That's 90%. That's good. And I didn't get what he was saying. That was good. But where we were, the mindset had to be, you have to expect to be perfect on every play. Even though it's not going to perfectly happen, you've got to expect perfection every time you throw a football. That's how you get better. That's how you win more games than anyone ever, is in that mindset. And in that moment, I recognized something from Coach Shula. He told me the things that I needed to hear. Not what I wanted to hear. And that's about those friends. It's about surrounding yourself with those really good people. And it's about listening to and saying things as a friend that people need to hear. Not what they want to hear. Hey, Scott, good job, 90%. No, Scott, you need to expect perfection every time you throw the ball. That's why I was able to play in Cleveland without ever playing. Because I had a coach that was willing to say the things to me that I needed to hear. I coached high school football. And those words that we say to people, those simple little words, can mean everything. Everything. I had a player in my first year who I went through the halls of high school, and I was nervous because I was like, here I've been this former NFL football player, now he's back coaching high school football. Are we going to be any good? Is anyone even going to show up? And I had that nightmare, I'll go out to practice and no one will be there. So I went to halls, and I just started, anybody of any size, you play football? You need to come here. And I just kept going through. So I ran into this kid, and he was massive, and I said, you have to play football. He said, no. I said, well, play football is really neat. He said, yeah. So he came out and played. He was 70 pounds overweight. At the end of practice, we'd run our conditioning. He was always the last one to run. He could barely make it, but he never stopped, and he never quit. And the players that finished before him actually went back and helped him. And they would help him run and finish his conditioning. At the end of the year, he came up to me and he said, I want to be a starter next year. What do I have to do? And I was kind of like, okay, should I give him to Coach Shula, tell him what he needs to hear, or should I say, well, start, So I said, well, you got to lose 70 pounds. And I know how hard it is to lose 70 pounds. He came back at the start of the season, he lost 7. He started on our football team. Not only did he start, he made the all-valley elite 11, which is actually harder than making all-state because it's all of the school classifications in Utah County, so it's 485 at school. There's some really good football in Utah County. And he made it. He was a team captain. At the end of the year, he was voted our most inspirational player. His mom came up to me after, and she gave me a big hug, and she says, you have no idea what this has done to my son. He was failing out of school. He would throw up every morning to go to school because of anxiety. He was on anxiety medication. He'd been sexually and emotionally abused by his father. He had no hope. And all he did was just invite him out to play. I didn't give him any grand speeches or anything. I just said, would you like to come and play? The things that we say to those around us can have such an impact. And they're just words. But they mean so much. Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, and it essentially incited a revolution that created the greatest country that we've ever lived in by words. And Abraham Lincoln's gave the Gettysburg Address 250 words that he thought was a failure at the time. He was vilified in the local newspaper because his speech was not long enough. It didn't have the impact and power that it needed to have. And those words were the words that healed this nation. And we speak words every day and don't realize the impact of what our words are. and what they mean to other people and they mean to ourselves. We have a responsibility to speak, and to speak honestly, and to speak openly. And we're in a time in our country where there's too much political correctness. There's too much, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to offend anyone. And we need to speak those common truths that make our country great. So, when I was on this show, The Biggest Loser, they had this stupid scale. And every week, I had to pack my bags in my room. So everything I had to pack there once a week. Pack your bags, because you might be going home tonight. And we would go, we would get on the scale, we'd stand there in a pair of shorts, the lights would be flashing on us, and they had these numbers that kept showing up. And you had no idea if you lost weight, gained weight, anything. It was so nerve-wracking. And I hated it. Every week I dreaded the stupid scale. When I played in the NFL, they had a thing called the Eye in the Sky. They filmed every practice. Everything we did, they filmed it. So you can never get away with this. And you just look at the practice tape, or you look at the game. I mean, imagine in your job that they videotape everything you do. That's kind of good, right? Some of you, with good reason. But there's some of you that they don't, and that might be with good reason too. But the point of this is there are things in our lives that hold us accountable. And we need those things in our lives if we're ever going to change. And the things that mean more to us are losing things that we already have as opposed to gaining things that we don't. They did a study on 2,000 people who bought the new iPhone. And they're actually coming out with another one now. And they said, how much are you willing to spend on somebody, to give this up to somebody, to have them buy the iPhone? And the people who had the iPhone, and this was average of 2,000 people, said, I'll sell it for $1,217 more than what I bought it for if someone wants to buy it. And they asked 2,000 people who didn't get the iPhone but wanted one, how much are you willing to spend over what it costs to get an iPhone? And they said $97. So the things that we already have, we're much, much more willing to hold on to than to get things that we don't have. And I found this every week when I would go on that scale. Okay, I know that scale is showing up, and I'm here. I don't want to go home. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to stay here. And I knew every day that I was going to be filmed in practice. And I go, I need to be here. I want to start. I want to play in the NFL. I want to make sure that I stay here. When I went on the show, one of the greatest things to me about losing weight was that I could fit in clothes that felt good on me. Instead of the elastic waistband and clothes that hid my curves and all the weight gain. It was embarrassing. And I had multiple sets of clothing. I had my small, medium, and large. And they were actually extra large, extra large, and oh my goodness. Because my weight, would just fluctuate, go all over the place. So when I came home from the show, I got rid of all my oh my goodness clothes and my extra large clothes, and all I had were just clothes. And I don't, and I won't get out of my clothes. I'm not going back. And there's a psychological component to this where you've got to find something in your life you don't want to give up and use it to your advantage and fight for it to the death. Because you're most likely to hold on to the things that you have than to give up or to get the things that you don't have. My dad, before he died, he looked at me and he said, "Man, I just tried so hard, but I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have enough willpower. I just didn't have enough inside me to do it." And what had happened is my dad just didn't realize all of these other forces that were playing against him. They weren't just his willpower. It's more than I just want to do this. There's a lot more to it. You have to learn to love the things that you hate and love the things about yourself that are hard. And you have to be willing to work at things that you can't do. And you need to surround yourself with people or things that will keep you in check and that will bring out the greatness in you and that will help you to exercise striving to be perfect in everything that you do. And that you have friends that are going to tell you the things that you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And you need to find a way to hold yourself accountable in a way that you're not willing to give things up. This is a habit. It's a process. It's that cocoon, it's that metamorphosis that can happen to anybody. And the final thing is about controlling your values. Because people that are overweight, they feel hopeless. I can't do this. It's too hard. I just surrender to this. A year and a half ago, I had an office in Salt Lake. I live in Mapleville, Utah, 60 roughly an hour, and I drive to this office every day. My wife, in an attempt to help me, would make me a healthy lunch to take to work. And it was beautiful. It had everything in it, love and good. So I would set it in the seat right next to me. And on my way to work, I would head to one of two places. McDonald's, or 2 breakfast meals, or a fast food Mexican restaurant called Betos that had everyone shakes their head. Combination breakfast burrito with a large soda. I would eat that driving to work, and that would last. So I'd eat my lunch along with it as I was driving to work. And then I get to work and I didn't have lunch. And so I'd have to go to lunch. And we had Mexican, we had Korean, we had Vietnamese, we had Thai, we had Chinese, we had Indian food, we had Brazilian food, we had every ethnicity within about 4 blocks of my office. Which one am I going to today? Well, it's Monday, Mexican, right? And it just did it every day of the week. And it was the buffet, all you can eat. That was my favorite one, because I ate everything I could possibly eat. But you can't just go and not eat salad. That's blasphemy, right? So I come back to my office. We had snacks. Pretzels were stuffed with peanut butter. Like about 2 pretzels is about 170 calories. It is, look it up. I would eat snacks all afternoon. I would drive home an hour. And it's an hour to drive home, right? So you have to get hungry. So I would stop at the point of the mountain at the greatest restaurant ever introduced to the state of Utah, Popeye's Chicken. I love Popeye's Chicken. We had Popeye's chicken every Saturday in the NFL. It was just a tradition. Every team I was on, everyone had Popeye's chicken. I would get a 4-piece meal, red beans and rice and biscuit and a large drink. And just for dessert, I get a 3-strip chicken strip dinner. I got home and my wife said, "Are you hungry?" I couldn't say no, because she made this beautiful lunch, so she'd make me dinner every night. I was consuming between 7,000 and 10,000 calories a day. And guess what? I had no idea. I was consuming almost in breakfast what I consumed on the show. 1,550 calories for breakfast. My daily allotment on The Biggest Loser was 1,862 calories a day. I was never hungry on the show. So what I found is that I was convinced I had to stop at these places. I mean, I came around the point of the mountain, and my car would just drive off the road and go to Popeye's Chicken. I had no control over it. I had no control about where I went to lunch. I had no control about the things that were in my office and the snacks that I had. I had no boundaries. It was like the Wild West. I could go anywhere, do anything, eat anything I wanted. This is awesome. And what came to the West? Barbed wire, fences, boundaries. Identifying this is yours and this is mine, this is safe and this isn't. And you set the boundaries. And you choose how you live your life and the things that you do. And you're always in control of that. And you're even in control when you're going to die. I said earlier I coached high school football. I had a player who got up after practice in the summer, just before we were starting our season. And he said, if we're a really good football team, if everyone does their job, we're going to be elite. And he got in the car, drove across the parking lot, and never made it out of the parking lot. There were 3 other football players. They were in an open-air Jeep. The Jeep rolled over and landed on his head. For a day and a half, they kept him alive, but he was essentially, there was no brain activity. The reason they kept him alive is because he was an organ donor. And 7 of his major organs were donated to individuals. 169 other parts of the body were used to help other people. As you can imagine, for me this was awful. And I was there, I saw the whole thing. And for a long time, I struggled with it. He always finished his conditioning first. He was the one that went back, helped the other kid out. Every day. Six months after he died, I was in my office and I was still bothered by this. This is such an amazing young man, and why did this have to happen? And I had this moment. The moment was this. He chose to die. He could have lived, and he would have been a vegetable had he lived. And he knew, in the moment of dying, that he could do more than what he did. And he knew that was a better choice. We had a memorial service after he died. The gentleman stood up and said, I know this is a tragedy to all of you. This is a miracle in my life. My 10-year-old son has been on a kidney transplant for 410 days. We've given him hope. And then a perfect match came. And I watched my son, who's 10 years old, die 3 times and come back to life. And now my son lives. And it's a miracle. A woman came to Springfield, Utah, every month for a year. And the first time she came, she got lost. She wanted to find a cemetery. She went into the local supermarket and asked for directions. And she ran into the football player who died. They became fast friends. She lives today. I don't care where you are in your life. If you're overweight, if you don't feel like you can do it, if you're dying, you always, always, always have a choice. You can control your boundaries always. Your life is not predetermined. You can make that change. You can metamorphose into something great inside of you. I remember my dad looking at me because I was really sad when he was going to die. He said, "Are you going to be okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I am going to be okay. Because I found something in my life that you didn't have. You didn't find these tools in your life. And they were there. Any one of us can use these tools. We can incorporate them into our life to change, to become the very best self that's inside of us. The caterpillar, it doesn't go outside itself, doesn't go get a magic pill. It goes within. And it pulls out all of the things within it. And it changes into something completely different. You look at a butterfly, it's still that ugly caterpillar. It just has these beautiful wings that allow it to go different places and see the world from a different perspective. And each one of us can find that within ourselves. That ability to change, to improve, and to become the butterfly. Thank you very much for your time. You guys are amazing. I know you can do this. Thank you.
We just had a big thank you there for us, Scott. Some gifts from Montgomery County. We're going to present those to you. There are some Idle Isle chocolates in there. You can give those to one of your accomplices as a parting gift if you need to. But we really appreciate Scott. Wonderful message, and we'll have a table over here. He does have a book that he's written, a wonderful book, and so those are available if you want to stop by. I already got mine. I know they're already autographed. So thank you very much. But can we do another big thank you for Scott? Okay, Jenica, got another hour? Okay, feel free to hit the booths. Again, Mr. Mitchell's over here. He does have the table with his books. Pickleball. If anybody's interested in pickleball, we'll do a little bit of that over there, show you how to play, do a little exercise. Again, thanks for being here.